Hello, Lee.
Right, morning. Welcome everybody. I thought I'd just kick us off with that, seeing I think we're talking about partnerships this morning. So that seemed like a nice little partnership to get things going. So Lee, partnerships, how do we do them? How don't we do them? How do we make them? How do we break them? I'm not sure.
Morning, everyone. What a great song. Thanks, Ivan. Certainly does date us a little bit. Yeah, so I've been thinking about it, and you know, it's difficult because the things that you think about are the things that, well, certainly I've been thinking about them, I'm sure are things that are common in terms of, you know, what does it take to make a partnership, and of course the first point is every partnership is unique, and so how do you are there generalizations that you can make? But I do know that people have said to me, well, you know, what does it take? I mean, I know there've been people who've been married a lot longer than I have, and I'm just using marriage as an example of partnership because it's the longest partnership I've had. We'll be married 34 years in December. And so what does it take? It definitely, for me, it's this, there's always this dance between being together and having space. So I think that's one of the things that is one of the things that helps. Having a sense of humor definitely is important. and having things enough in common that you can do things together, and enough that's different that you bring different things to the party, so you keep it a bit interesting. So those are the things that I would say about a marriage. And if I think about that in terms of a business partnership, I don't think it's that different. I think there has to be enough difference, enough agreement, a good sense of humor definitely helps. And then I think the last thing is a sense of purpose, of being, you know, what is it that you're bringing together for? So that's my sort of entry point into the discussion. I know there are things that you've probably, as I say, already thought of, but I'd love to hear if you've got different thoughts, add to the thoughts, and we can go from there.
Great, thanks, Cindy. I think you've said it all. We can pack up and go home now. So, no, just kidding. I'm sure we're going to get lots of other insights. So I think we've got to start with Ed this morning. So Ed, let's get across to you.
Yeah, I think you started with the wrong person, really, because I'm not very good at relationships. For a start, my computer's relationship with Zoom wasn't very good this morning. I had to try a few times to get in. I disagree with Lee about business relationships being the sort of similar to marriage. I think they're fundamentally different, and I think there are probably maybe 4 or 5 different relationships. Marriage being one of them, where you or a romantic partnership being one, relationship between a child and a parent being another. And I think you have to be really, really stupid to stuff up a relationship with a child, because they're almost inbuilt to like you. And then there's friendships, and then business relationships. And I think in business relationships, it's really the purpose you're trying to achieve that binds you together. I mean, I couldn't stand my business partner. He was totally different from me. We didn't socialize. Strange enough, we used to run together quite often because we'd go places and we'd both love running. So we'd both run together, but we wouldn't socialize. He was a Tory. I'm a Labour Party supporter. He was pro-hunting. I'm anti-hunting. All sorts of stuff. But it was that common purpose that bonded us together. Whereas I think that bond's different in a sort of domestic relationship. There, it's all sort of lovey-dovey stuff. There was no lovey-dovey stuff in our business relationship. It was actually, he had the skills I didn't have, and vice versa. So we just worked at how we would work together. And so we didn't socialize, we weren't friends. And actually, since the business is folded, although we were still in contact, well, they're not folded, I sold it to him. We're not in contact except occasionally on Facebook. We make no, so I think business relationships are totally different from loving ones. And then friendships are somewhere in between. You know, there are some things you'll accept from a friend, you know, foibles, differences, flaws that you perhaps wouldn't accept from someone else. And then you'll accept even more flaws, even more foibles from someone you love. So I think there's a range of things, and certainly one end is business relationships, the other end is romantic ones. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Great, thanks, Ed. We love disagreement, so yeah, it's all good. It's all part of having a good relationship here on Zoom is knowing that we can disagree with each other. So good. So Donovan, let's get across to you next.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, I don't have much to contribute. I was just thinking in terms of the purpose, which not only drives the reason for the partnership, but also it gels the partners together in terms of placing a focus on achieving, that specific goal or purpose. So it's all about goal-directed behavior, which forms, molds, and gels the relationship. That's how I view it. Thank you.
Thanks, Donovan. Right, Cecile, let's come across to you next.
I'm starting to think that I'm also not good at business relationships. Because just when I forge a nice relationship with someone in this PPE space, they either disappear on you, or they have lied, or I don't know, that's something like that. But yeah, I agree with Ed. There are very many kinds of relationships, and sometimes one can almost accept more from your friends when they are, what do you call it, foibles, than what you can even accept from your spouse. Because I see men can mock each other a lot more about things than and without getting mad with each other. Whereas a husband and a wife can get a little bit cross if you mock him about certain things, or if you say certain things to him. And then I think that the other relationship that is also blood is thicker than water is relationships with your family. You have to eat up a lot more nonsense from them, because they're your family. Friendships, that's a different working relationship, and but it will be interesting to hear what the others say about work relationships or business relationships.
Great, thanks, Cecile. Right, Trevor, let's come across to you next. Trevor, you've got to press the unmute button before you start talking, otherwise it just doesn't work.
No, listen, I had another page up and I was wondering if you were talking to Trevor Carty. You've got to be specific. I saw him on here. Interesting little thing here. I was just thinking about, I just think all relationships are the same. They're just varying degrees of sensitivity that we put onto them. So I actually think that Ed is totally disagreeable because I don't agree with the thing that he says. At first, I might agree later on. But what I think, and Lee, I was trying to count, I'd lost track of how long I'd been married after 3, but I think we're close to the 4th, 40 odd years of going, of marriage. And I don't think Sheldon and I have agreed on anything. But we have a giggle and she shouts at me. And I don't think the 2 girls agree on anything. They've gone off in their own directions. I've got tons of books that I would love them to have just picked up one book and read page 1 of something about what to do in life. And they've said, no, stuff you, we're doing things our own way. So one comment that I want to make, my experience has been, I think individuals are harder on those closest to them than the other way around. And I don't know if that's what I interpreted from Ed. I think we put more stress on those people that are closest to us and more expectation on them than those that are further away from us. And I really don't see too much difference between relationships in business, relationships in marriage, relationships with your kid, apart from the stress that you actually put onto those that are closest to you and that mean a lot to you. So I think you put more emphasis on those closest to you, and that's perhaps my style of building a relationship, is to try and keep quite a distance to make certain that those that I'm in business with, their long knives don't get into my back too soon. So I try to keep, like COVID, where you put 1 meter or 2 meters, just in case you turn your back, you don't want them to get into you, and that's perhaps the best way to go. Maintain a distance apart from when you're married. Does that make sense? No.
No, absolutely. Now I know why I'm so grey and bald. Business partners like you.
You've got to stop rubbing your head over what I'm saying.
Yeah, scratching my head all the time trying to work out what the hell you mean. Got absolutely no idea sometimes. Good. So Jasper, let's get across to you next and find if you can unravel some of this nonsense for us.
No, morning. I tend to agree with Ed's unpacking of the different kinds of relationships. And before Ed started to talk, I had basically just 2 things to say that doesn't matter what relationship it is, but then afterwards I realized it has nothing to do, it actually is about a specific relationship, because I just added the word add value. So I think that holds true for marriages, and it holds true for business relationships, and that you need to have compatible personalities, and it doesn't mean you need to be alike, but you must also not totally be put off by each other. And I think that requires for a mature individual, and I'll probably conclude with that statement. And then years ago, I was mentored by someone who taught me about leadership, and he said, a leader doesn't have to be liked, but he has to be respected. And then he went into all the things that it takes to be, and you earn respect, you don't demand respect, that kind of thing. So, but the versus politicians who just want everybody to like them, and they turn, what's the story, turn the mantle to the wind. Then when Ed started to unpack the different other kinds of relationships, I was just thinking of a child, how you then like a child through its various stages. So there's the child totally helpless coming into this world, and you have to put up with his poop and with his illnesses and with all his demands and stuff. And yet you adore that little cubby little child. And then they become little humans, and then they become teenagers, and then they rebel, and you're the worst thing that ever happened to them, that kind of thing. And yet throughout that relationship, you're a parent, and a parent loves them unconditionally, and you only learn about unconditional love when the chips are down, when there's nothing to love. I actually learned more about my relationship to my Heavenly Father during my child's teenage years, when we were in a very tough relationship spot there. And I thought, if this is how I feel about him, but I still love him, thank God for a God who loves me through all my messed up years. But so there's the child stages, and it's probably true for marriage as well. So I think marriage also have then the stages that you grow with the stages, and you know, I think the topic of love could be an interesting one to say, what makes us stick to it? What makes us take the pain and then work through the pain? Because in successful relationships, we come out on the other side having changed ourselves, not the other person. So that was a thing that came out for me. And then my mind went on to another road, and that was to say, if I think of children, someone, because I don't know how to create life, but God trusts that helpless little baby in the hands of immature, unprepared adults, and somehow it works out. And then I thought, well, isn't it also true with customers who bring us their money? They trust the business with their money. They don't know all the messes we do behind the scenes, and you know, what corruption is in the company, or inefficiencies, whatever. They just come and trust us with their money. And then I thought about, and we as public trust the government with our votes. And we, so we actually sit, the big question for me then is, how do we strive for our own personal vision of perfection in a totally imperfect world filled with imperfect individuals? And then it just comes back to, again, to we need to be mature in ourselves so that we don't need to get our credibility about ourselves from other people's opinions. And we need to be totally adjustable. And if I look at the various relationships that I have in business, I'm working with individuals that are so diverse in who they are and very strongly opinionated. My survival is my ability to adapt. In some cases, some individuals stretch you more than you were prepared for. So then you have a choice to walk away or adapt even more. And then it comes back to, but what is the common purpose that binds you together? And I think it's the whole thing. If the purpose is strong enough, or some people have said, if the why is strong enough, the how doesn't matter. So you don't. I'm not too fussy about the role that I need to play in a certain relationship, as long as the job gets done. So I know I've now said a lot without saying anything, and I hand it back to you, Ivan.
Thanks, Jasper. Yeah, I think you make a very good politician one of these days. Yeah, so yeah, it is. It's an interesting concept, and I think, you know, obviously everybody's touched on elements of it for me, but at the end of the day, I think it's got to start with trust. If there's no trust, there's no relationship. So, you know, it comes down to, and if the trust goes away at some point in the relationship, then in my opinion, the relationship goes away. So that's where it all starts for me. But I think, you know, Jasper touched on it now as well, about the maturity in the relationship, you know, the ability to be able to confront an individual within that relationship, and for both people to do it in a manner that doesn't break the relationship, doesn't necessarily break the trust. So that's you know, that's where I think it really boils down to, and I don't think it matters what kind of relationship you're talking about. You know, whether it's personal, whether it's you know, a family member, whether it's a business. You know, if there isn't any trust, that's just not going to work. And then, of course, you get the challenge of maturity, as Jasper was talking about. You know, and for me, maturity also aligns itself with ego. So, you know, if people's egos are fragile, you're going to find it very difficult to create a lasting relationship of any form, because as soon as you try and address an issue within that relationship and the ego reacts, you know, someone's going to have to back down and compromise. And if you're making compromises based on that kind of reaction, then again, you don't have a strong relationship of any kind. But having said that, relationships are about compromise, but it's finding the right compromises and doing it in the right way, I think, to really make those things work. So yeah, those are my few thoughts on relationships. So Lee, I think it's back to you. I mean, we have a bit of time on our hands. I thought I could also, seeing that we'd spoken about a couple of things, we could maybe just try doing a little bit of a musical interlude while I let you think for a moment. So how about this one for relationships?
So Ivan, I didn't take you for such a romantic. Thanks, Trevor. We do have just a few minutes, and this word. So thanks, Ivan. That was very cool. Maturity. What is maturity? It's come up before. We've spoken about we need the maturity to, or it takes maturity. But what do we mean by that? So I'm asking the question. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, as I said, just now, for me, maturity comes down to ego at the end of the day, and the ability to have an ego without it being fragile every time something potentially addresses a point within your sphere. But does that necessarily come with age? Maybe not always. I think obviously age can help, but sometimes age also doesn't help. So yeah, maturity is an interesting one. So Trevor.
No, well, you're looking at someone who's the most mature individual I know. And I was also thinking on this, and just following the wake of Dougie Bird. So we connected with a lot of my mates from the rugby and water polo days over the weekend. And it dawned on me that I'm well into my 7th decade on this planet, which is a hell of a long time. And this word maturity, I think I put sense of humor about life and people that you meet and all of that as best as possible above what other people consider to be maturity. Collar and tie in a boardroom, don't upset the board. Man, just be happy with who you are. Make certain the things that are important to you is what you are following. And it's, I was working on those 1, 2, 3 things that we were talking about last week. Maturity, worst word in the blooming dictionary. Throw it out. At the end of the day, if you talk about Christian foundation, I will always admit to being a kindergarten Christian. Will probably fail grade 1 or preschool on that level over and over again. And do I care? Not a jot. If that's immature to people who want to be bishops and all that sort of nonsense, I couldn't give a damn. But one thing I must tell you, I was also thinking, don't stab me in the back. It's the worst thing you could ever do because you want to see how immature I really am. And hooray for immaturity. I love being who I am, not a boardroom individual of any kind. Hate pretentious people. Is that maturity or immaturity?
I think that was a really mature response, Trevor. So thank you so much for that. Right. So Cecile, let's get across to you.
Maturity. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe I agree with Trevor about the word maturity. Maybe we must just say that we mellow a little bit. We don't mature, we mellow a little bit. Because when we are younger, a lot of things that are not important are important to us, and it upsets us. And when we are older, I'm sure even older Trevor, would let things go that riled him when he was 30. Now he says, you know what? My one brother's always got the saying about the lump. You can classify all things about a lump. Is it a lump in your porridge that you can squash and just move on? Is it a lump in your throat, or is it a lump in your breast? And you treat all situations according to the lump the lump strategy. And I think as we mature, we treat more and more things like just a lump in the porridge. Really, is it going to make the world stop? Stop if things don't go my way? No. Let's move on. Let other people do what they want to do, and just don't bother me about it. So that's my thought about maturity.
I don't think this is where Lee thought this conversation was going to go at all. But that's what it's all about. So Donovan, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yes. I've been driving, so I didn't really get it about which thoughts on that. I once heard the saying that
Donovan, sorry, your sound is really breaking up badly on us. I'm afraid we're not really hearing you at
if
all.
you know how to behave public, then you're mature. You can still behave the way you like.
Yeah, okay. I'm afraid we're not really hearing you at all, Donovan. So I'm going to.
You well behaved outside of.
Okay. Jesper, let's get across to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about this, but yeah.
All right.
Again.
Can't you mute?
He's muted. So I don't know what to do.
Okay, so how does it work? All right. If that quick sense of humor is then an indication of maturity, then we have the winner today is Tavernell, with that play on the lump, and he took it to some extremes there. But Eddie even got his own, so he's got his own prize there. So, and I think that to me is probably, if I have to define maturity on the, well, I'm going to say a contradiction here. On the one hand, it's being humble enough to, that it's not so much about you. And then I realized then I have to take the prize away from Trevor. But then I want to add to that, to say a big picture man. So you've grown in your understanding of the world, of a large picture. And in terms of the large picture, you're no longer concerned with the small things that happen along the way. And someone way back said to me, how you see the, well, your vision determines what upsets you. So if you have a flat tire and for the next 3 months in all your conversations, you bring up the fact that that day you had a flat tire and all the hassles that it caused you, your world is pretty small. Whereas big people or mature people can handle lots of challenges along the way and laugh it off, and it doesn't even register on their radar because they see the big picture. So so then, okay, Trevor, you can have that prize back in terms of the big picture man. So yeah, so that's my contribution.
Thanks, Jesper. Right, Ed, can you bring these children to line, please? I just really have got no hope with them.
Yeah, okay. When we're talking about mature, all I could think about was cheese, which is a bit strange for a vegan. But if you think about it, mature cheese is strong. and it has a distinctive flavor and it stands out. And if you put it with other stuff, for example, you know, it will stand up to a robust wine. It'll go with all sorts of things. So, and I think that's what being mature is. It's about having a strong identity, being able to stand up to things, being your own. So yes, like, you know, you're quite comfortable going into a boardroom in a t-shirt. You feel comfortable in your own skin. So yeah, I think maturity is all about cheese.
Okay, so who moved my cheese? I don't know. Where did it go? Okay, Lee. So, I don't know. Where are you going to take us tomorrow after this session?
No, so I just thank you for that. I was interested to hear what the different perspectives were. So we have touched on the subject, and Edward just raised it for me in the just now, sort of privately saying, can we talk about the universal basic income? So I'm thinking going a completely different track. We've talked about people, we've talked about relationships, we've talked about all those good things. Let's talk about a subject that is actually sort of in the current conversation that is amongst thinkers in the world today. It is being advocated by a number of people, and I think it's a search for what is a more sustainable way of running our world economy. So I would love to hear your thoughts. What is universal basic income? What does it mean for individuals, for nations, for regions? What would be its benefits? What would be what's the pros and cons? But also, you know, what would it work? Why do we see that it would work? Why would we see that it wouldn't work? And so we'd love to, let's throw the cat amongst the pigeons, because we're definitely going to have some differences of opinion, which nothing like being robust and mature. And so we look forward to that discussion tomorrow. Universal basic income.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Yeah, get the dukes out. Yeah, so off you go and count your pennies for the rest of the day, and we'll see how many you've got tomorrow morning. So have a good one, folks, and we'll see you then. Go well.